It's time to kick off the EU FNCS Grand Finals. Game 1 is always one of my favorite matches, Jacob. You kind of get to see how the vibes are, how the players are feeling. A lot of duos do have some problematic early games, contestations that they're going to have to get themselves through to make it to the late game.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy, especially with the changes that we're talking about with the cactuses, where a lot of players were easily able to get their storm surge. The thresholds were so high that players were having to think outside of the box or sometimes inside of their surge tower to try to get their shots. There's a huge amount of flexibility and not a lot of time to adapt for this grand finals, and that's why we're really going to see who is the best Fortnite players in terms of adaptability.
One of the quickest early game battles is QNDX Phantom up against Haijo and Kaido. Phantom gonna be the one securing that initial chest to get some tags onto Haijo alongside this slurp truck. This is the best place to land at this drop spot because you instantly get 200 effective HP and shield from that slurp truck and are able to push your opponents incredibly fast. So if Haijo and Kaido aren't or don't get the best of luck here in terms of loot, it's gonna be very difficult.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. They kind of sacrifice the shields, the instant shields, for more of the loot on the other side. So far, it does kind of seem to be working out for him, but Haijo just takes a little bit too much of a fall. Backs down, Kaido goes down, Haijo scrambling around. And the Middle East champions moving on over to EU. In game 1, they're making sure their presence is known.
That's a drop diff in my books, Jacob. Beat them at the drop, got the slurp truck, and closed it out by the book. Good way to start it off, but it's 12 matches that these duos are going to have to play out, potentially against each other if neither switch up their drop spots. But let's head over to Mount Olympus. Snazy and Podosai already with 2 eliminations.
Yeah, and our analysts were talking about this team when we started the show. Mount Olympus, uncontested versus contested. They were talking about how this team performs a little bit better when they are contested. And that was before with the cactuses. Now with the switch up, this surge is going to mean much more for either one of these teams. But on the other side of Podosai and Snazy, Philip Monk and Byron, they were the ones that kind of earned their spot for this grand finals. They didn't just qualify in through a couple of quick placements here and there. They got one of those victory royales.
Yeah, Fyron actually being one of the 17 players that are competing in their first ever FNCS finals. So he's alongside a more finals experienced player being Flip Monk, but Fyron, it's his first one. We'll see if the nerves get to him or if he can perform. But going against Podosai and Snazy, I know it's going to be difficult, Jacob.
Yeah. You can kind of see already a little bit of heals. He does have the treasure map, which should get him a few more pigs. And this is the fight that I was talking about. Podosai just taking note of every single movement. Snazy was there, but he didn't even need the help as we continue to go fight to fight. And do you think, Takata, this many early game actions is kind of standard? Or do you this is because of the players fighting for Surge early on?
I mean, Surge, like we said, isn't going to be as prevalent as it has been when the Slurp Cacti were into play. But it's grand finals. No matter what happens, no matter what the meta is, Storm Surge is going to be at an all-time high. The level in this lobby is at an all-time high. So being able to get that damage early on can kind of set you up for that late game. But the issue is a majority of teams that do end up securing those VRs and even finishing in first place in the grand finals or just getting higher placements overall tend to be uncontested. We've seen success from contested duos, but in general, on average, being uncontested does cause you to perform better. We'll see if that's the case today, though.
Yeah, it's just a whole different of comfortability. You can loot up, you can get your materials, start your rotation. We continue to watch Dexy play a little bit aggressive, going for the piece control. Another team with him and Eclipse qualifying through a victory royale. Really proving they have the blueprint to get some big wins, but it usually does start with little fights like this, just out sort of Rebel's Roost. Contested this time around, but they want to make sure that they not only get as much loot as possible, but get some early Storm Surge and just get one team out of their path.
Shots coming through from both ends here. Dexy now dropped the 15 shield. Looking to see if he can get a bit of real estate onto his opponents. AR shot comes through, but you got to be careful to not overextend. Dexy's been cracked now, 67 HP to work with, and is going to be forced to play it a bit slow here, recuperate what he's lost.
Yeah, able to kind of take their time. There's just a lot of freedom here, but because this fight did start so early on in the game, it really comes down to material count. How much did you farm up before you got to this point? You see between Dexy and Eclipse, relatively healthy. They're able to maintain their position above Maxi and Mystic down below. And just depending on what their material count is, you can kind of tell why they're turtling. They don't have the materials that can make this an all-out build fight, gain some advantage on the high ground. So they're just kind of left right now. They're left waiting on that low ground with very little flexibility. It's really up to Dexy and Eclipse how this fight continues to go. It's they either have to disengage or they're just going to hold them in that spot. And with the zone moving south, I'm not sure that's good for either team.
Yeah, I mean, with the zone pulling south, this north side is going to be more of the uncongested side, so they're not going to find as many duos here versus if they were a bit more south. So if they don't get enough damage in this early engagement, it could cause some problems, especially if they're not able to rotate out early due to stalling out that fight. We can see QNDX Phantom. It is the duo that took home those 2 quick eliminations off their drop spot, but Yanis and Pixie said, you know what, we want a little piece of that action. So they're going to start pushing on in, but Pixie's almost going to get cracked. This is looking quite dangerous.
You can see both the Slurp Cacti being used. You see with the changes, they're not going to be growing back, so that's all the healing that Phantom and QNDX are going to get out of those. And Yanis and Pixie rotating on over from Brawler's Battleground. They're probably looking at the feed, spotting this as a plan of attack. It's not too far off, and especially it being contested over down here, it's easy for them to take a little bit of time, get some materials, rotate on over, either get surge tags to try to hold this team down. They do have the launch pad that they can use as well, as long as it doesn't broken, and the zone is right there. So there is, in theory, a lot of time that can be expended in this situation, win or lose.
Time is good. Time is exactly what you need in a grand finals. You could even see on the feed, Dexy was able to pick up an elimination for Pixie and Yanis. I don't see them playing incredibly aggressive here. They're more kind of looking for shots back and forth. Merstash and Lavuka are close by as well. If they want to join the action, they have the opportunity to. But the longer this fight takes, the more they're missing out on farming materials and continuing to kind of set themselves up in a more dominant position for the mid game. So you can see now this has caused them to step it up a little bit, get the gears running. As the aggression is going to come through, Yanis is going to get pushed by both players, but so far, neither duo has been cracked.
I like what Pixie was trying to do. Weaken the walls, you can nitro your way in, but you immediately saw them try to extend themselves upward. 2v1 on the Yanis. Pixie quickly reacting, but now those third-party shots are beginning to come in. A very, very prolonged fight. Redline Rig saying, hey, what's going on over here? I didn't get my invitation, but I'm ready to crash it nonetheless. And the longer this one goes, because it is so close to the zone, it will become 3 teams with Malabuka and Mustache towards the outside, having most of the advantage overall because they could just target this out. They have the Machinist Medallion, they have the Mythic AR, they have everything that they need and the zone on their side.
Advantage is what they have. And you can see they don't even have to force themselves to get too close. They can just kind of take some pop shots. It's a very good opportunity to get a bit of damage in without having to put much risk at play. For Phantom QNDX, though, they're kind of sandwiched in between both duos, so it's not like they have a lot of options until one of their opponents start rotating away, which is exactly what Yanis and Pixie are going to end up doing. They got their share of damage. They're happy with it for now. They don't want to take any more risks, seeing that Merstash Malabuka are close by. So overall, I think that was a successful kind of little engagement.
Yeah, I think it really all depends on how much they surge they were able to get out of that total. But you see the zone is moving south, staying in that fight. Yeah, you can kind of get more surge, maybe some eliminations, but more and more teams will move from the north, take over the spots. When you got there first, you landed at Brawlers. You should have one of the best spots in the game to build your tower. Kiddo and Nebs, Queasy, and Thomas. You're seeing the flexibility out of both of these teams already. During last week in the qualifiers, they were kind of forced to go south for those cactuses, and now with the freedom of their game plan, Thomas and Queasy, I feel like, are going to have a resurgence, able to build momentum much quicker here this weekend.
Thomas, HD, Queasy going to continue on rotating through, but Chap and Teeny is actually a duo that I'd like to see perform today. So far, they've kind of based themselves up close to one of their opponents to see if they can get a bit of tags, but gonna decide to take the safer route this time around.
Yeah, luckily they do have those dashes. It does make it a little bit easier to get from point A to point B a lot of the time, especially a team like Chap and Teeny who do like to get aggressive. take over some spots as we see Swizzy and Vanya looking around the map. They go from brutal beachhead. Now they have kind of an uncontested bunker, and that's one of the last things you want to do or kind of give up to a team like this is freedom, flexibility. Now they can add their attachments, their modifications to their weapons. That kind of sets them up even more so than they were before. You see the Flowberry Fizz, the crash pads, the medallion, and Swizzy as well. A lot of flexibility for one of the best players in EU right now.
With the potential to make history today, Jacob. They did take home the previous major championship, and they could be the first duo in EU to get a back-to-back championship. A lot of people have them as their favorites going into today, just like they do Vico and Flixi. Landing at Reckless uncontested. They have their surge base built up now. You heard Vico talk about it in the interview. He's not too worried about the Slurp Cacti change. They were not using it too much, seeing that they are more on the southern side of the map, so their game plan has not been affected.
And hopefully so. They were one of the most dominant, consistent teams throughout semifinals and qualifier. And they can kind of stick to their game plan, play straight for consistency. As last time we saw Chapter team, they're just kind of dashing around. You can see what they were dashing for, trying to find a team that they think they can catch off guard. One of the more aggressive teams that like to fight time and time again. And this is where it's going to get tricky because it is a full-on box fight. It is in the zone, and it is in a direction where teams will begin to rotate down towards.
I remember Chapentini in one of the previous majors this year went from 16th place in day 1 to 2nd in day 2. If any duo can make a comeback, it's them. Good news is they're in the first match, so no comeback has to be made as long as they're consistent. As a reminder, this is kind of the underworld area of the map where you have that water of Styx, that green water that grants you those dashes. To propel yourself forwards, you can regenerate it just by stepping inside the water. As you can see, these duos making use of that.
I'm a little bit concerned right now for these guys because if you look at their ammunition, barely a clip on his assault rifle, maybe a reload in his shotgun, and then he has the small fries, 3 minis, so you can already tell these guys have been having a little bit of a rough early game in terms of loot, and I think getting out and away from Chapentini was probably one of the best decisions because even if you win that fight, there's so many other teams that will jump on top.
That's true. Take a replay. Cami Seti. Looks like something might have went wrong for them. Both players being extremely low. I don't see Seti getting out of this situation anytime soon. As the Gentleman duo might have just cleaned up our FNCS Invitational champions.
Not too worried just yet. Like we've been talking about, this is only game 1 out of 12 games. It's a marathon, not a race. Then on top of that, Takata, day 2, 1.5 times multiplier, which means as long as you perform decently enough today, you're going to give yourself a shot to perform well in day 2, close that gap if there is one, and hopefully either take home that Axe of Champions or at the bare minimum, a global championship spot.
A lot on the line, Jacob. It is the last major before the global championship. We'll be filling up those final spots for the in-person event of the year. As we go back over to Rift Island, it's going to be Kiro Mapi up against Chapentini here. Seeing who is going to be able to secure the flag.
Trying to back him off as much as possible. They're doing a good job keeping that bottom control. The only thing right now is there could be a small possibility that Chapentini are just trying to extend upward enough. Yep, to the capture point still goes through. They're giving it up. Kind of letting Mappy and Kiro feel a little bit comfortable so that way they don't just push up because you saw that they were weak. They were trying to heal. I think best case scenario for now for Chapentini, reading the situation, I think playing it right.
Yeah, you can see how many duos as well in the surrounding area are also kind of boxing up. You can see Quasi Thomas not too far. Zone's about 45 seconds till it closes and 5th zone appears. Storm Surge is most relevant in kind of 7th, 8th zone. I'm curious to see how those numbers kind of change today compared to the semifinals, especially with the Slurp Cacti changes. But Mapi and Kiro getting quite close to caution here.
Yeah, They got a nice shot onto one. Teeny's just trying to get a flank. Mappy is down, but it is going to be a trade. 1v1's going to break down. You see him instantly trying to go for his teammate, maybe even trade revives. He thinks it's the best case scenario for now, especially since another team has landed on top of Rift Island. That's Focus. That's Belusi. They probably heard, saw something go down. Even Queasy and Thomas said, hey, this might be a good position for us, but they get quickly tossed off the island, which allows for enough time to be bought for Kiro to finish the revive onto Mappy. They're going to clean up the elimination onto Chap, so it does look like they're going to win that 2v2 for now.
This FNCS or Party Royale, look how many players are on the Rift Island right now. Thomas HD Queasy quickly decided against that idea, though, when they saw the risk that was involved. Good news from Moppy and Kiro. They're back in the game now, picked up. Bad news. Do they have any heals? Do they have medkits, Jacob? I'm not sure.
Just looking at Teeny on the other side, being very, very quiet. He can't even heal up, even though he does have the heals. 2 materials. This is just a rough spot to be in, because as soon as they go ahead, stand next to that wood wall, I feel like they're going to give a good shot to see Teeny. He's ready to edit, run out of there as fast as possible. And you're seeing what happened to Rift Island. It was a comfortable 2-team island for quite a little bit until Queasy, Thomas, Radion, Belusi, all these duos jumped on top and tried to claim it for themselves. It's the best point of view in order to get Surge on the majority of the island.
Take a look at Kovacs now, 57 above. It's kind of that position where you're not in desperate need of Surge, but in the blink of an eye, it can change. On the other side of the wall, you have Podosai and Snazy. More than comfortable enough with the amount of damage they've already secured, which means they don't have to play aggressive. They're all in the defense here, just taking pop shots when Kovacs and Duo push in. Nitro is going to be popped, though. They're not in the zone yet, so they are going to be forced to rotate. Going to kind of recycle the builds from Podosai and Snazy here and follow them in, hopefully, with the hopes of picking up some tags.
Ooh, a nice little flank attack. He has the wall weak, breaks in with the Nitro. Doesn't necessarily want to fight on this rotation, especially since they're right there in zone, 5th zone. Ooh. This is when we start to get very, very close proximity to one another, making it harder to survive if a third party does start to jump on. Podosai and Snazy beginning to rotate as well. Nobody really wanted to get too close too early, except for these guys here who are deep in the zone. They're fighting for a lot here because as soon as they make it out, they not only get the loot, but they get the zone right on their side, and there it goes, a trade. Thomas is going to win that one, but the focus from the lobby is coming in. He needs to get out. Just 3 ticks of HP is all he can take, and he's going to survive for now, and there's more than enough time for him to backtrack, get Queasy back on up as soon as he pops those colas.
There's a reason Thomas HD has the 2nd most top 10 FNCS finals finishes out of any player in the world. The issue is, Jacob, he's yet to take home that 1st place spot, that Axe of Champions. And with the push coming in from Pred and Radion, looks like game 1 is not going to go their way.
That's just tough. That's a very tough situation to be in. And then Teeny from one tough situation to the next. He's using the cannon. Oh my gosh, Mappy. I was thinking he's using the cannonballs outside of the box and said, Mappy, you ain't going nowhere. Whoa.
Get back. That's a huge pickup from Mappy. 5'11" above. Take a quick replay. No shot. Not missing a single shot. Teeny thought he was slick with it. Cannonballing away. This was recently added last week. But good news is that Teeny has been putting in the work in terms of aim training. And it paid off.
Back-to-back shots. I didn't expect the cannonball, let alone back-to-back hand cannon shots. Really entertaining already, starting early on. 28 people still alive, though, so even with those elimination, placement points have not begun to set in just yet. 3 teams still need to go down. Chulix and Chicho, they're forced to rotate out of their Surge Tower, but with the Crash Pad, the Flowberry Fizz, and all that elevation, not only is nobody really going to see them, they're going to get in towards zone and be able to jump their way in.
Gotta be careful, though. You need to wait for your builds to be fully constructed before making any edits or taking shots. You do not want the focus to go on you, especially when you land kind of in a center position in the zone without any duos close to you. It's very easy to get focused in that situation. Swizzy Vanya, just 46 above, not in the most comfortable position. A lot of stakes are on the line for this duo. So many people are rooting for them to take home Major 3.
About a new era of competitors. Hey, this could be it. Crash pad coming out. See him instantly covering the distance. Others already pressured and safe, but not too far off to go. You can see the ones that do have this max pull. It's almost vital that you have to have the Flowberry and the crash pad, especially without too many heals, not only in your inventory, but around the map as well.
Another Flowberry with this crash pad rotate coming in. Good opportunity to land a potential shot onto Lunix. And not only that, a full-on knock. All they have to do is take cover here now with these spare materials. They have a long ways to go before they fully make it into zone. Storm Surge is ticking, causing these players to apply pressure and do as much damage as possible. But one more crash pad Flowberry should be enough to get them right in.
Yep, and now they have options, different obstacles, but they're just going to go ahead and box up. 146 above the damage threshold, which is a little bit of a feeling of confidence, but where they're positioned now, they're really, really minimizing the amount of surge they're going to be able to get, because most of the teams, they will go up, they will go over, or they'll simply just go around where they're currently positioned.
Good news is, though, that elimination that they picked up has kind of granted them the come-through ability to be able to put themselves in a position like this, as you have Eclipse right on top of their box, just 32 HP, one shot away from going down, as the Nitro's going to come through. No more heals, no more shields. In one of the most desperate situations you can be in a grand finals, Eclipse needs a miracle.
Yeah, and a lot of these other teams are starting to take note when players are down surge, recklessly trying to jump into boxes. You have a little bit more choices of what you can do. You can fight it, bait a shot. You could just try to hold him out as Eclipse goes down. Him and Dexy are out. Merstache is going to fall. Malibuca now by himself. We were talking about this team and the red line rig and how much more powerful the loot is this time around. And unlike the semifinals, they're 520 above the damage threshold. They were struggling before, so they fixed one part of their game plan, but getting caught off guard is not something you can necessarily fix.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, they got good damage, but the bad news is teammates down. Malibuca's alone. Will he be able to clutch it out as a solo? I've seen him do it time and time again. Kiduo Nebs looking quite comfortable as well. Very close to the zone here. Majority of players still yet to have concluded their rotation, as once again we see a crash pad rotate into zone.
Just trying to get some cheeky little shirt shots as they fly across the sky. Some of the best and safest shots you're going to get, especially with everybody else having to rotate in. They found their spot in zone, and they've fallen just a little bit on that damage threshold. Still above, but by 22, with a couple more surge zones to go through, that's not a full feeling of comfortability, but you're seeing they're being very, very meticulous of when they peak and when they actually go for these surge shots. With everybody boxed up, they know how dangerous and risky it is.
In terms of duos that are looking healthy, Vico Flixie gonna be one of them. I saw CZB and Nathan just beside them as well. These are two incredibly powerful duos that can make something happen in this late game. In terms of high ground, it changes an average of 5 times during the matches throughout this season. So especially if you try and take it earlier on, you have to expect a lot of duos to try and contest it.
You can see right now just being very, very careful. Changing layers, going up, down, just trying to peek where's this rotation. Zone pulls forward, gives them a chance to look at pings and walks. No damage really able to get through, but you can see that on the wood, which means they're probably almost out of materials, just like Vico and Flixie, who are looking very, very thin, and that's why they're looking for an elimination, a refresh for those mats and resources.
Snazy now down below, but you got to be careful. One of the most risky places to be in currently, as Podesai has lost his duo partner, left the node, but decides, I want to get back into the action. Picks up an elimination on Nebs, picks up the materials from the Elim, but now eyes are on him. Podesai has to find an escape, and the crash pad might just be it. Yeah,
very early on, we have about 7 solos running around this lobby. Make it 6 as one of them's going to go down. Podesai still doing what he can, but he has no HP, no shields to regenerate, so he's going to have to either find a refresh or go through unnoticed. As you look in the sky, it's Mappy, Kiro. They found themselves positioned well above the rest, and this is a dangerous position for everybody below. We know how great Mappy is when somebody's flying through the sky. Now picture this with so much pressure, builds breaking, and chaotic scrambling going down on the low ground.
Issue is, all I see is wood in the inventory. Kiro as well with a little mistaken crash pad into the zone is now going to be forced to lose quite a bit of HP on his way back for Swizzy and Vanya, though. They're back together, grouped up, healed once again. as they go onto the corner side of the bottom half of zone. Klownski, Axeforce are now going to be the kings of high ground.
Yeah, it's already changed hand once, and I think it might change again. There's still some crash pads in inventories. Mappy towards the backside of zone. Malabuka as well, as he lasers somebody out of the sky. Klownski, Axeforce, 4 eliminations, looking for their 5th when that one gets cleaned up. They have a decent amount of materials, but they are running out. Malabuka goes for the play one time, doesn't get it, and that's going to be regret because he goes down for it.
Top 8 finish from Malabuka. More than enough, seeing that Merstash went down basically the whole end game. Swizzy Vanya, though, both players still up. We can see that the chemistry is strong with this duo. They are clear favorites, and you can see why.
I think Mappy found another elimination as well, but they're just not concerned with that. They're just focused on their layer and nothing else, moving forward, staying ahead of the game, and that gives them the flexibility to look back when they want to, if they want to, and with the materials they're able to get with a right elimination at the perfect moment, Vanyak is able to place all of this space down below, and as long as he stays healthy on these materials, if it comes down to the final 2 teams, he got my vote.
Flipmonk goes down. Probably the duo with the most builds in the match currently is going to be Swizzy Vanya. Up above, we saw Klownski and his duo partner had, what, 4 materials like 10 seconds ago. They have to be running low shortly. Going to be forced to drop down and play a bit aggressive as Radion and Pred, 7 eliminations. Now going to have to hunt for more.
Yeah, all those solos littered around the lobby are no longer there. It's all duos left alive, some in a stronger position than others. The zone is going to continue to move up this mountain ever so slightly. Means a team like Radion, Protege have to get up, and they have to get up quick. And with everybody fighting above, that's a little bit of a distraction, but they take some of the focus. A lot of damage onto Radion. He's scrambling around. Teammate gets left behind. Swizzy and Vanya are the ones that are fighting him, and they both go down for it.
The change in elevation, it's too much for these players down below. Axeforce, Klownski capitalizing on this zone, making the most of the situation, is now all they have to do is look back and connect their shots.
Yeah, nobody's gonna be able to contest them. They were just trapped. They were just boxed down below. That one was like taking candy from a baby the moment they got high ground from Kiro and Mappy.
Perfect zones for Klownski, Axeforce. All they had to do at that point was play it by the books. They had basically no materials in the last 2 moving zones, but luckily enough, the zone did pull back, so they didn't have to use more materials. All they had to do was apply pressure from above. You can see 4 materials onto Axeforce, but with that zone, they cleaned it up, and they secured the victory royale for Game 1 of the EU FNCS Grand Finals.
Yeah, even with what little builds they did have left, you saw the crash pad to save them. Shoots out the crash pad, nobody can use it, and with 7 big eliminations, they are going to be your first team to take home a victory royale in the Grand Finals. Takada, things are already shaking up and looking spicy.
Look, things are heating up. We have 6 matches today, 6 matches tomorrow, but this is just the start of the Grand Finals, Jacob. I'm excited to see how things change up. But before that, we're going to head to a quick break, and then we'll be back for a lot more action. See you soon.